This I know. The NFL season is another day closer to opening day. Kenobi is a huge hit on Disney Plus, and the Oakland Athletics are moving to Las Vegas.
Unbelievable! What a play!
Nobody works harder. This guy is a future superstar in the media business.
Keep up the good work, man. I like your style.
You have a gift. And with great power, there must also come great responsibility.
This is the way.
Long have I waited, and now you're coming together.
Another week, another jam-packed show of the Allcorn Show exclusively on the Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Network. Episode 3 is live right now. We got a huge show for y'all. First, I want to thank you all so much for the support on this past Sports Zone episode on the Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Network. We are now up to 5 viewers on Twitch. But ladies and gentlemen, as this has been talked about, as a Bengals fan, I didn't want this to happen. It's not a surprise, though, but the Rams somehow find a way. Aaron Donald lands a $95 million contract. At first, we talked about, is Aaron Donald going to retire? We see so many times with teams where they get to the Super Bowl, they win a Super Bowl, and then they struggle. They get egos with Doug Peterson when he wrote that book after the 2018 Super Bowl against New England, dysfunction, drama, Kardashian drama, so many things could go into effect. But I believe what we're learning from this, obviously this may or not be the case for every single NFL team. The cap doesn't necessarily matter in the NFL. Either your owner wants to spend all that money, or frankly doesn't, is just super duper cheap, or 3, doesn't know how to spend their money. I don't know how they are doing this. But yet again, the Los Angeles Rams re-signed Aaron Donald to a $95 million deal. In a way, potentially kind of a quick summary of how this contract could work. After 2 years, theoretically, he could go to a team in Pittsburgh. I believe he mentioned that he had some family issues there. So there could be a lot of things there. But kind of breaking this down, Aaron Donald's contract is guaranteed payout for this season and in 2023. The highest non-paid quarterback right now. $22.5 million. Top 6 on NFL players. I know everybody has their own opinion of what play they do or don't like. This may not be completely right, but I said it anyways. In my genuine opinion, Aaron Donald is this generation's Lawrence Taylor. When you have to game plan your whole offense, maybe until your whole defense against one player, it just shows how dominant. No single coverage, no double coverage, maybe not even triple coverage is going to stop Aaron Donald from getting to the quarterback. The rich get richer, and the Los Angeles Rams are able to bring back Aaron Donald. This just shows, folks, that for 19 seasons or 20 years, it was always, the Belichick way. The Patriots got to 6 Super Bowls, 9 Super Bowls in 19 years. You have 6 rings. It's the Belichick way or the highway. Well, it's kind of starting to look the other way. The Rams just won the Super Bowl. Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams have been to 2 Super Bowls in 19, 20, in 4 seasons, they've been to 2 Super Bowls and have a ring. So we're starting to see a shift and a change in the National Football League. It's not just about being frugal and not spending your money at all. But again, at the end of the day, we will just have to find out at another time. Now, we can kind of think, how does this impact the Los Angeles Rams? How does this impact really the NFC West? I talked about how on my show, I believe it was last week or on my practice podcast, I do not believe that the Arizona Cardinals are going to make the playoffs next year. Maybe a shocker to some people. I get they traded for Hollywood Brown, but I think this re-sign right here for Aaron Donald of the Los Angeles Rams is going to be changing everything. Because now owners that have the money and can kind of figure out their ways against the cap makes perfect sense. You re-sign Cooper Kupp, who we're going to talk about in a minute. You re-sign Aaron Donald, who a guy had to go away, hurry up or sack in the playoffs time and time again. You saw it his rookie year. I believe it was 2 to 3 time Defensive Player of the Year. 31 years old, already featured first ballot Hall of Famer. Could have retired. I don't think anybody would have had the problem. The biggest thing that not necessarily blew my mind, but how should be in the NFL with coaches and players and GMs and coaches and within the organization is how you communicate. I believe, and I could be wrong on the quote, Sean McVay said to Aaron Donald, shame on me and shame on you if we can't at least try and get this done. Aaron Donald has a ton of money. That's not a problem. He has a ring. He's already solidified his legacy even without a Super Bowl. But a Super Bowl is just the icing on the cake. Aaron Donald, if we break this contract down even a little bit more, he earns $40 million over his previous contract he had, which makes it equivalent of a $95 million total value. We see the Dallas Cowboys. We see Jerry Jones. He spends money. But what's that third category we talked about? Owners can spend their money, but that's not necessarily an issue for certain owners and franchises, whether it's baseball, football, or basketball. It's how you spend your money. And the biggest thing here I've learned, and maybe I'm wrong, I think that Pat McAfee should have said it, where the NFL cap, if the owners have a certain amount of money, doesn't necessarily matter. Like they're going to pay for it, whether it's in 3 to 4 or 5 years from now. The Rams will pay for it, but not right now. They're going to keep it going. Another part of his contract, $31.6 million per year. Aaron Donald is the first non-quarterback to eclipse $30 million annually. If that doesn't show already, regardless if it's the money or not, how good Aaron Donald is. We don't need the money. We don't need the rings to show. You can show it based off of instincts. Like I said before in my podcast, that you don't have to look at the numbers to show how good a player is on and off the field. We're going to go over 4 to 6 NFL teams in their 2022 schedule until the end of July and early August. First team runner-up, we have the Carolina Panthers. Before I kind of give my game per game a quick summary, the Panthers are in a weird, awful situation, but I don't feel bad for them whatsoever. You get Matt Rule, who completely turned around Baylor. This is, I believe, his 3rd season. Financially, they give him the reins. They give him your Social Security number, the keys to the Ferrari, everything. And yet, his 3rd season right now in 2022 coming up way quicker than we think it will. But for NFL fans like myself, the NFL season can't come fast enough. without a part of his saving grace. Tom Brady retires. Jameis Winston signs a 2-year deal. We could say whatever we want about Winston. I'm not convinced of him as the quarterback, as a starter. They have so much money that you can't even spend right now. Michael Thomas, he's injured. We don't know when he's going to come back. They had that drama this past offseason in 2021. So much uncertainty. And it all comes to a close in March when Tom Brady unretires, comes back to the National Football League. There were so many stories of how Tom Brady's going to become part owner, be the quarterback of the Dolphins. Sean Payton was going to come in. That rumor kind of started when he left the Saints, all these other different things. Now, who knows what's going to happen with Sean Payton. But the point is, we're going back to covering or giving my quick thoughts of the 2022 Carolina Panthers and their schedule. Mind you, folks, this can change if the Carolina Panthers trade for Baker Mayfield. Again, this can change for the Carolina Panthers if they do trade for quarterback Baker Mayfield. Ironically, their first game, this could be really interesting, folks. Week 1, they face off against the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns. Imagine. We'll go through both scenarios. Sam Darnold's the starter. I believe the Panthers still win. There's so much dysfunctional with the Browns organization. They made a great trade for Amari Cooper, 6th-round pick. You got him for nickels and dimes. That's great. You have Nick Chubb. You have those guys. But there's still drama, still mistake after mistake after mistake with the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield gets traded to the Carolina Panthers, which I'm not saying it's going to save McAdoo's job, but it gives him a better chance to have a better season this year instead of who? Sam Darnold, who saw ghosts. It was a 3-game wonder. I'm not hating on Darnold because he went to USC, and obviously the Longhorns stopped him from getting 3 straight national championships back in the day, but Reggie Bush, that's okay. We'll let you have the Heisman Trophy. The Panthers have to make the playoffs this season, but it's not an option. It's a make it or break it year for the Carolina Panthers. Week 2, you face off against the New York Giants. Again, this could sound repetitive. I think either way, I'm going to pick the Carolina Panthers to beat the New York Giants, but it's going to be a close one because Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, who knows? Maybe the Panthers don't trade for Baker Mayfield till halfway through the season or right before the beginning of the 2022 regular season. So adjusting to the offensive playbook, getting used to the plays and how the coordinator wants things done, those things can change over time. Those things take a while to adjust. Week 3, the Carolina Panthers face off against their divisional rival and the New Orleans Saints. This is not a surprise. This is not a shocker in any way, shape, or form. Jameis Winston's the starter. Jameis Winston or Sam Darnold. And that game versus the Saints is going to come down to defensive plays on 3rd and 4th down, which is why I picked the Saints to beat the Carolina Panthers in Week 3. Week 4, we have the Arizona Cardinals. I know what I said about the Arizona Cardinals not missing the playoffs for multiple reasons why. We can go into that another day. We talked about it before. We'll see what happens this season. If I am wrong, I'm more than happy to admit it, and we can go through it at that time. They will lose against the Arizona Cardinals Week 4. Week 5, they face off against the San Francisco 49ers. It's interesting here because we know the 49ers traded up to get Trey Lance in the 2021 draft. Jimmy G injured. You're not necessarily going to get much for him at this point. He's like $20+ million against the cap. Could be wrong. Please correct me for anybody that's watching. Whether it's Jimmy G or Trey Lance, I still believe that the Niners have a better chance to make the playoffs than the Cardinals. With that being said, for this game right here, I still pick the Niners to beat the Panthers. It's not a shocker. You have the running attack. You can say, oh, John, the Panthers have McCaffrey when he's healthy. The Carolina Panthers only have McCaffrey when he's healthy. And on top of that, this is a good point to bring up. I forgot to put this in the script. Robbie Anderson is considering retirement. Undrafted in 2016 by the Jets, had career in 2020 with the Carolina Panthers and Teddy Bridgewater, who Teddy, I believe, is in Miami. Had a career year in 2020, was arguably one of their best options. Not necessarily a positive or negative reflection on him. It's just you had Curtis Samuel go to the Commanders this past offseason. A great weapon as a receiver, tight end, running back, fullback. A great addition for the Commanders. Quarterback-wise, that's up for debate because not all redheads stick together. But it's really going to be interesting. The health of Christian McCaffrey is really going to be a big factor this season, regardless if you have Baker Mayfield. If Robbie Anderson does retire and they don't trade for Baker Mayfield, this season is going to be even more of a nightmare for the Panthers, not just against the Niners, the Cardinals, the Saints, the Giants, the Browns. Every team they face, they have literally little to no chance. Outside of Detroit, maybe outside of Seattle. If Seattle trades for Baker Mayfield, those are two really good options. We know Baker's better than Geno Smith and Drew Lock. That's just an open fact. Let's just not debate that. Week 6, they face off against the Los Angeles Rams. This is not a debate. It's the Los Angeles Rams. Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, all those guys. The Rams there's no way the Rams are going to lose that game. Week 7, they face off against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would have picked the Panthers, but Tom Brady unretired. The Bucs will win that game. He'll have a 253 touchdown game. Week 8, face off against the Falcons. We know we can talk about the career narrative, what Mariota can and can't do. We're not talking about the past. We're talking about what he's done or not done in the NFL. Certain players do or don't get a pass. But if we're looking at this game, how dimensional? I believe both offenses are really one-dimensional. Like I said before, this whole season is going to change for two things that could or could not happen. The Carolina Panthers do not trade for Baker Mayfield. Robbie Anderson retires. Think about this. The Falcons have Kyle Pitts. We can say whatever you want about Mariota. He has Kyle Pitts. They have, I believe it's Drake London, the two first-round receivers, one's a tight end. Great weapons, which is something that honestly, outside of Corey Davis, Mariota didn't have in Tennessee. Not making an excuse, but Drake London and Kyle Pitts, that's going to be the complete advantage in this football game because who knows what the Panthers are going to do. McAdoo said in the press conference, yeah, Donald's our guy. 5 to 10 minutes later, he said, I probably shouldn't have said that. Week 9, obviously, folks, this is an easy choice. This is, you know what I'm going to pick. I'm picking my Bengals. Not just because it's my team. Joe Burrow. They're hiding for vengeance, ready to come back and try to get better in the playoffs. Obviously, the drama with Browns, who knows, and drama. There's it's like the Kardashians invaded the AFC North. I'm not like it's crazy. Like their show invaded the AFC North with all this drama with Baltimore, with the Browns. It's going to be a weird season, but a really fun season for the AFC North. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. You have defensive players. You re-signed one of your players that you got from the Saints a couple of seasons ago. I picked the Bengals. Their offense, Joe Burrow, those guys, and Trey Hendrickson is going to get the job done on the defensive side of the ball. Week 10, they face off again against the Atlanta Falcons. 2-year deal for Mariota. I'm picking the Falcons. I'm sorry. I'm not saying they're going to the playoffs. Let's calm down. Tom Brady at the Bucs, showing that team. I would be shocked if Gronkowski does not come back on a $15+ million deal. We saw what the Rams and Snead. Listening, he was a genius as a GM. Bring your players back. Bring your players. Find a way to navigate around the cap. It's possible, but I'm still picking Falcons to win that game. Week 11. It's weird because it's usually so obvious for certain teams. Yes, he's going to come back next year. Yes, it's all that drama. There were drama years ago with the Steelers with Le'Veon Bell and setting out that season, which really hurt him. I'm not saying that's what Lamar is doing, but we can go over that more in a little bit on the show. I want to pick Baltimore. The health of the running backs for Baltimore and for Carolina is a huge factor. Baltimore's a running team, but so can Carolina be with McCaffrey. But if Robbie Anderson retires, I still got to pick the Ravens in a 45-point game. We don't know who their number one receiver is. The health and the availability of J.K. Dobbins in 2022 is up for questions, especially after ending season earlier last year. Week 12 against the Denver Broncos, Russell Wilson, Sam Darnold, or Russell Wilson and Baker Mayfield. It's Russell Wilson, that team. They now are owned by the CEO of Walmart. So they're going to be making some money moves in 2023. But I picked the Denver Broncos to beat the Carolina Panthers in Week 12. Week 14, because Week 13 is a bye week. The Seattle Seahawks face off. Because, of course, the Panthers face off against the Seahawks at their stadium. We talk about laughing stocks, teams that are a joke, that aren't going to get anything done. That's Seattle. That's the Panthers. You have drama with DK Metcalf, who we'll talk about in just a little bit on the program. There's just a lot of drama, a lot of pressure for both coaches this season, for Carolina and for Seattle. I understand Seattle's in this weird rebuild phase, trying to pay DK Metcalf, not sure to do at the quarterback position. But sooner or later, Pete Carroll's going to have to be in the hot seat. I'm not saying he is this year, but at some point, he's going to have to be. Week 15, face off against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kenny Pickett, I'm picking the Steelers to win that game. Week 16, come on, folks. Detroit, they're not a football team. Nah, Detroit has no chance in that game. Week 17, they face off against Tampa Bay. The GOAT and the Bucs will win that game. Week 18, you have the Saints. The Saints are the playoff team this year. They are above the cap. New head coach. We don't know how their offensive team is going to go moving forward. We talked about the drama in the AFC North. Well, now there's drama in the other division in the NFC South with another receiver. There seems to be a lot of common ground this offseason. A lot of drama with teams and their receivers. Who knows what the Saints are going to do with Michael Thomas moving forward? He got a contract, I believe, after the 2019 NFL season. So now, what do you do with him? Is it Tre'Quan Smith, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara? What's his health like next year? It's just a lot of uncertainty. The Bucs have that team. It's really going to be interesting, but I don't think the Carolina Panthers are going to get more than 6 to 7 wins. If you trade for Baker Mayfield, which is looking more and more unlikely by the day, by the minute, by the second, it's going to be a long season for the Carolina Panthers. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back after this 30-second break. Next, we're going over the 2022 Chicago Bears and their schedule. The same process we have for the Panthers, for the Cowboys and Lions, and the teams we're going to go over. Number 2 team we are talking about in this episode 3 of the John Allcorn Show, exclusively on the Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Network. Give me just a minute, ladies and gentlemen. We are having some technical issues. The Bears this season with Justin Fields, obviously there's going to be some expectations We know what he did at Ohio State, appeared in a national championship game, played with a lot of greats at Ohio State. Well, ladies and gentlemen, week 1, Chicago faces off against the San Francisco 49ers. Defense, easy. It's going to be the Niners, which is why I picked the Niners to beat Chicago and to have Chicago losing week 1. Keem Hicks, a key fun defensive player, goes to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay gets richer. That's really going to be a big factor. You have Khalil Mack, who's getting older. Great trade a couple years ago with your former head coach, but now he's getting older. The defense is getting older. You're in a rebuild mode. It's going to take some time, but that's okay. Chicago has their quarterback. Sorry, Jay Cutler, you would never. Guy, week 2, they face off against the Green Bay Packers. I know you talked about, Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers. They're a huge connection. They were a good connection in terms of the passing yards and touchdowns, but Devontae Adams didn't help him get to the Super Bowl. Aaron Jones didn't help him to get to the Super Bowl. I have no doubt he is a top receiver in the NFL. I'm not debating that. But did Devontae Adams increase Aaron Rodgers' chances of getting to a Super Bowl? Just genuinely ask that. I'll give it a couple seconds. We'll continue. Definitely not. With that being said, you're going to have the CEO of the Chicago Bears. Aaron Rodgers facing off against Chicago. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers in week 2 in an inexperienced quarterback, Justin Fields, who no doubt, folks, has a bright future in the NFL. Week 3, you face off against, the Houston Texans. Oh, man. Oh, no. The Houston Texans. Texans are going to get themselves embarrassed. Week 3. Come on. It's not about how you want to make a joke of the Texans. Texans do that for themselves in terms of their quarterback play, in terms of their team not been to a Super Bowl in franchise history. You have ruined David Carr's career, who's a great broadcaster for the NFL Network. But Davis Mills, Justin Fields, both in their second year in the NFL, but Justin Fields is a lot more mobile. I believe he can read better in the pocket. He can see players down the field a lot quicker. Again, both in their second year in the NFL, but I'm going to give the field to Chicago to beat the Texans in week 3. Week 4, they face off against the New York lonely, boring football Giants. You don't pick up Daniel Jones as 5th-year option. Saquon Barkley has a make it or break it year. This could explode really quickly in the first 5 weeks of the Giants if they don't get it done and if they're off the field, pretty much going to screw them over a ton. They will beat the Giants week 4. Week 5, we have them playing the Minnesota Vikings. Cousins. He's not a great quarterback. Him and Derek Carr are very similar, except the only difference between Derek Carr and Cousins, Derek Carr is a little bit more mobile. It's going to be the same story. Justin Jefferson's going to ball out this year. He's going to get a new contract. Who knows what Minnesota's going to do at the quarterback position. I came out of the last time they had a championship, if they've even had one. But that is neither here nor there. Depending on Dalvin Cook's availability, I picked the Vikings to win by 3. Not because they're this great all-performing team, all Pro Bowlers are going to a Super Bowl. But you're going to see early on how Justin Fields, while inexperienced, is going to improve slightly, but surely, every single week by week. Week 6, they face off against the Washington Commanders. Here we talk about again, more drama at the receiver position, but now in the NFC least. And yes, it is the NFC least. Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders are still struggling to get to a deal. So right now, there's the presumption that he's not going to be playing for a couple of games or not going to be in training camp. So let's say he gets traded. They have no chance. It really, it's not because redheads don't like each other or they do. Carson Wentz wasn't their first, second, third, or fourth option. Again, I'll repeat this. There's a story out there. Don't know if it's true, but if it is, you had Washington contacting all teams for their starting NFL quarterback. And aren't they trying to get a new stadium too? So just a lot of distractions. Not necessarily bad distractions, but distractions in general. I'm going to pick Chicago to win because Justin Fields is going to have more than 25 rushing yards. Chicago is going to win that game. Week 7, this is going to be setting the tone for the New England Patriots for many reasons. Can they get back to the playoffs? Mac Jones going to win the MVP. Does Mac Jones need to win an MVP for them to have a successful season? Week 8, after they lose against New England in Week 7, they face off against Chrissy Wilson's Dallas Cowboys. As much as I don't like the Cowboys, as much as I want to give up or continue to make jokes, what will go wrong has gone wrong. But I'm picking the Dallas Cowboys to beat the Chicago Bears. Dak Prescott, you have those guys. Gallup, we don't know when he's going to come back. A lot of uncertainty. We'll have to find out, but definitely could be a lot of interesting games, a lot of fun games next year in the NFL. Week 9, the Miami Dolphins. Oh, no. This team is a disaster, travesty in 2022 and moving forward. They're going to beat Miami. We're going to beat Detroit. Falcons, I'm going to have them lose it against Atlanta by 2. Week 12, they play against the New York Lonely Jets. I'm not convinced of the Jets. This year is going to be a factor of 3. It's another Sam Darnold method, or you believe in them too much that you let go of other players, let them go in free agency. You got a lot of young guys, Michael Carter and all those players. Frankly, I don't know how it's going to work out. Anything is possible, but it's the Jets. According to the coaching ranking, they had Robert Saleh, I apologize if I butcher that last name, as one of the worst coaches in the NFL. He's not terrible, but he's not interesting. Doesn't necessarily get the job done, but we'll see what happens this season. Week 13, oh boy, the Bears face off against the Packers yet again. Packers win that game. A bye week in Week 14 at 4 more games for the Chicago Bears. Week 15, they face off against the Eagles. I know what I said, and I still stand by it about Jalen Hurts. I'm not convinced of him as a quarterback. But this season could change that. They made monster trades in the National Football League. I believe you had A.J. Brown from Tennessee. They got great trades in the offseason. They got great guys in the draft. I could be wrong. This time towards December, towards Christmas and my birthday, we could be talking about the Eagles as a playoff team. But for the whole season, more importantly, this game against Chicago, I still have the Eagles winning. I understand what they promised of Fields and the rookie receiver, but you got a proven veteran receiver in the NFL. You have a quarterback who needs to prove it. That could be a potential good match in 2022 for the Eagles, but I still have the Eagles beating Chicago in their stadium Week 15. Week 16, Chicago faces Buffalo. They absolutely have no chance, no way, no how. Week 17, you face off against the Detroit Lions, who frankly should be eliminated from the NFL because they're owned by the Ford family who don't know how to do anything besides wipe their own boogers. Week 18, they face off against the Minnesota Vikings and Kent Cousins. I could be beyond dramatic. This could be one of those games where this could determine the seeding for the Vikings in the playoffs, or really could determine if the Vikings make the playoffs. The Minnesota Vikings continue to sign Kirk Cousins to monster deals, even though he hasn't proved anything in the NFL. Case Keenum has more playoff wins than Kirk Cousins. I'm not saying Case Keenum's a starter. He's not. But that's just, leave that with what you may be or how you want to interpret that. The next team we're talking about is the Dallas Cowboys. They face off Week 1 this Sunday, not this Sunday, in September, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Same thing as last year, 2021. Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, not a debate. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Week 2, the Dallas Cowboys will lose against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Week 3, Dallas Cowboys face off against the Giants. It's just like the Giants still in the division. Put them in a toilet bowl. Of course, the Dallas Cowboys are going to beat the New York Giants in Week 3, which would be their first win through the first 3 weeks of the 2022 NFL season. Week 4, they face off against the Washington Commanders. Oh boy. Overall, I like to make jokes about the Cowboys, even though the jokes, to be honest, they make themselves. Dallas Cowboys beat the Washington Commanders. Week 5. Oh boy. I'm trying to think, folks, about this one. Nah, I'm picking the Rams to beat the Dallas Cowboys Week 5. Week 6, the Philadelphia Eagles will lose against the Dallas Cowboys in their own stadium. Week 7, Detroit, the Ford family. Detroit will lose that game against the Dallas Cowboys. Week 8, despite the year that Trevon Diggs had for the Dallas Cowboys, with having like 11 plus interceptions, he also gave up a lot of yards, which I think is going to be a huge factor for the rookie receiver for the Chicago Bears, which is why I'm sorry, Christy and Dallas Cowboys fans out there. Not really, but it's all good and fun. I will pick the Dallas Cowboys to lose against Chicago in Week 8. Week 9 is a bye week. We go all the way to Week 10 against Green Bay. It's not Christmas. It's only June. To a certain extent, in certain games or in some games this year, Rodgers is going to miss Devontae Adams in the regular season. But I'm picking the Cowboys to slightly beat the Green Bay Packers in Week 10. I understand it's Lambeau Field. I understand the implications and everything else, but I still pick the Cowboys to win that game against Green Bay. So, Christy, I'll say it one more time for the Cowboys fans out there. I picked the Dallas Cowboys to beat the Green Bay Packers Week 10. Of Week 11, the Minnesota Vikings will be the next NFC North victim to lose against the Dallas Cowboys. Week 12, the Giants again lose against the Cowboys. Not just because of their drama and what else is going on. The Giants decline Daniel Jones' fifth-year option. It's a make-it-or-break-it year for the duo, for the quarterback-running back duo, which never even established as a duo whatsoever. 2018 Rookie of the Year or runner-up for Saquon Barkley, and then you started to see his style of play is similar to Lamar Jackson. The difference is Lamar Jackson's a quarterback, despite all jokes out there, and Saquon Barkley is a running back. Both are prone to injury. Week all the way down here to Week 13. The Colts. Matt Ryan could be the first NFL quarterback of all time to lose to 31 NFL teams. And in 2023, whatever happens this year, if he's even so what the Colts retires like Philip Rivers did after 1 year in Indianapolis. 2023, Matt Ryan could be the first and only NFL quarterback to lose to every single team in the NFL. Imagine losing to potentially every single team in the NFL, appearing in a Super Bowl, having an MVP. Look, if I just told you this right here, before we continue on, this quarterback, let's just say a quarterback, he has an MVP, won multiple playoff games, been in a Super Bowl, but has nearly lost to almost every single NFL team. You wouldn't know what to do with your mind. It's act crazy. But that's the story of Matt Ryan. Week 14, oh my. Texas might as well ship this one home and not even show up. You're not beating the Cowboys. There's no way. I don't know how they're going to get more than 4 to 5 wins this season because obviously they're not going to trade Baker. They got a very good veteran underrated receiver in Brandon Cooks, though, but that's not going to help their season overall. Week 15, they face off at Jacksonville. Doug Prescott and the Cowboys win that game. Dallas Cowboys also beat the Eagles Week 16. The Dallas Cowboys also beat Tennessee in Week 17. And the Cowboys also beat the Washington Commanders in Week 18. I know what I said, what I said. It was absolutely not necessarily crazy, but the Cowboys can be the Cowboys, and I can be wrong at times. A lot of my takes could be 100% wrong, but that's okay. We have a good time. We talk sports. No mess, no stress at all. Folks, we will be right back after this quick 30-second break. This is going to be funny, but it's real quick. We're going over the Detroit Lions, their 2022 schedule. This season's going to be absolutely hilarious, but this could show what it is about. Week 1, Detroit faces off against Philadelphia. No. Week 2, they face off against the Washington Commanders. No. Week 3, they face off against the Minnesota Vikings. No. I apologize. Week 4 against Seattle. They definitely have a chance there because I doubt at this point they would trade for Baker Mayfield. Next week, they face off against New England. No. October 23rd against the Cowboys. No. October 30th against Miami. There's a good chance. I believe they'll beat Miami and Seattle. Going to November 6th against Green Bay. No. Going against Chicago November 13th. No. November 20th against the New York Giants. I definitely think that they have a good chance to beat the New York Football Giants. I don't know, I can say New York Football Giants. It's New York Giants. They haven't even earned that. The Lions, of course, play on Thanksgiving again. They faced off against Buffalo. Oh me, oh my. No. They play against Jacksonville December 4th. No. This season is just a joke. And folks, it doesn't matter who they bring in. Until the Ford family sells a team, which they won't, they're not going to win a Super Bowl. Why do you think Barry Sanders retired over a fax? Yeah, I know they got DJ Chark, who used to play in Jacksonville. That could be a revenge game December 4th. I know all these different things, but that's not going to matter. It's the Detroit Lions. Oh, man. December 11th, Minnesota. No. New York Jets. Yes, they will beat the New York Jets. December 24th, Christmas Eve, face off against the Carolina Panthers. I think they'll beat Carolina Panthers. New Year's Day, Chicago Bears. No. January 7th or 8th at Green Bay. No. So to really preview, that was super quick, but it's not just because it's a joke. It's not just because it's Detroit. They're just not going to win anything anytime soon, not in the next 5 to 10 to 15, 20 years. Jared Goff is clearly not their guy. It's not the same situation like it was at Miami, where they made it so obvious, without saying it, that Tua is not their guy. Let's just be honest about that one. I believe the Lions will beat Seattle week 4. I believe they'll beat the Dolphins October 30th. I believe they have a chance to beat November 20th against the Giants. I believe they'll beat the Jets December 18th. There's a chance they can beat the Panthers game 15, week 15. That's 5 wins. I'll get the Detroit Lions to be 5-12 this season. Let me know what y'all think about that one. The Jonathan Show, Season 3, Episode 3, exclusively on the Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Network. DK Metcalf, as we go more NFL talk, is holding out for a new contract. The question is that many people have presumed and probably answered. Excuse me. Does he deserve, and or more importantly, has he earned a new contract with the Seattle Seahawks? A couple of things that could obviously play advocate for him because do the research on the numbers. It's not just about the numbers for Seattle. They're in this kind of rebuild mode. Pete Carroll is in this make it or break it year to where he could be on the hot seat in 2023. 2 to 3 years from now, Seattle may be looking for a new head coach. So it's kind of tricky. Seattle doesn't have a starting franchise quarterback for next year. No, it's not Geno Smith or Drew Flock. Those guys aren't starting quarterbacks. We know that already. Geno Smith has been on 3 to 4 teams, and I believe he's almost 30 years old. That speaks for itself. Drew Lock, he listens to Young Jeezy, so clearly he doesn't have good taste in rap music. But generally, DK Metcalf, new contract. They don't have a franchise quarterback. Pete Carroll could be on the hot seat in 2023. I'm not saying he's on the hot seat this year in 2022. But to be honest, folks, I believe DK Metcalf deserves a new contract. I believe it most likely could be with the Seahawks. Now, should it? Unless the Seattle Seahawks plan on trading for Baker Mayfield, or just thought about this, Seattle tanks but doesn't tell people that they're tanking, even though it shows in their offensive play week by week. Even though they have Jamal Adams, that's not a complete factor for them. They got a lot of great quarterbacks in the 2023 draft. So if I'm Seattle and the Browns continue to be the Browns because they're stupid, they're the Browns. They're the reason why they haven't been to a Super Bowl, much as for a long, long time. DK Metcalf will get a new contract. And if he gets a new contract, I believe he will get re-signed by the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle will draft a quarterback next year. And if they're smart, get a quarterback in the first or second round. Pair him with DK Metcalf. Let's see what happens with the running backs in the mid-rounds of 2023 and 2024. If we can see where this goes in a couple of seasons, then we can kind of see what goes with the Niners, with the Cardinals, because the Cardinals have to win playoff games, more than one, plural. Here's why I think DK Metcalf should get a new contract. To back it up, he was the 64th overall pick in 2019. 3 seasons in the NFL. From 2019 to the end of the 2021 season, DK Metcalf has 3,170 yards, nearly 3,200 yards, 158 total receptions the past 2 seasons. So basically, to kind of average that up, DK Metcalf the past 2 seasons, despite some of the injuries to Russell Wilson and how they haven't made the playoffs, he's averaging the past 2 seasons 79 receptions, 11 touchdowns, 22 total touchdowns the past 2 seasons. And he's averaged total 2,270 yards the last 2 seasons. To break that down even further, his total stats breaking it down from 2020 and 2021. His stats for 2020 and 2021 are 1,135 yards, 11 touchdowns, combined with 79 receptions, along with 33 games started in the past 2 years. So based on those numbers, he started pretty much every single game the past 2 seasons, despite what kind of the season the NFL had in 2020 with the uncertainty with the panorama. Really, DK Metcalf deserves a new contract. I'm not saying that he's this or that. But based on these numbers right here, 3,000 plus yards his first 3 seasons, 158 total receptions the past 2 seasons. He's averaged 79 receptions the past 2 seasons, 22 touchdowns the past 2 seasons, 11 touchdowns the last 2 seasons. Almost 2,300 yards the last 2 years. And he's had Pro Bowl numbers his past 2 seasons. Overall, his first 3 seasons if you divide them, Pro Bowl caliber like numbers. Y'all know how I feel about the Pro Bowl. All these numbers are pointing to how and will DK Metcalf is going to get a new contract with the Seattle Seahawks. Now, what Seattle does at the quarterback position, whether they want to say they're in rebuild or they trade him, about Seattle, I wouldn't trade DK Metcalf. Sign to a new contract. Nothing too crazy, though. Make sure it has some significance towards the end of the back to where you can get a quarterback in the first or second round next year. Then you can kind of build from there. But I'm advocating for DK Metcalf. 11 touchdowns last 2 seasons, 1,135 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 79 receptions the past 2 seasons. That's warranted for a new contract. And even then, go even further if I want to. I'm not his agent. I don't know him. I don't know anybody that knows DK Metcalf. I'm just doing the research to prove my point either way. This is not about trying to get favor with somebody. Looking at that division, the NFC alone, we have the Niners, Seattle, the Cardinals, the Rams. And even outside that division, let's go to NFL teams right now. From the past 2 seasons and their starting receivers, because I want to be an advocate for a player that succeeds. And if a player doesn't succeed, then I don't want to be right about that. I'll never, ever want to be right about a player not succeeding. Unless it points to so obvious that they're not going to. Philadelphia Eagles, Washington Commanders. Okay, so Philadelphia Eagles, Denver Broncos, New York Football Giants, Miami Dolphins, Baltimore Ravens, Detroit Lions, Carolina Panthers, New York Jets, Jacksonville Jaguars, Houston Texans. Those are 10 teams where DK Metcalf is so much better than their receivers. Those are just so many reasons why I believe DK Metcalf will get a new contract with the Seattle Seahawks. We are starting a brand new series called Ready to Remember. This segment is only going to be from June to the end of July. But we're going to talk about 2 forgotten NFL players and their career, and we're going to talk about what they did, or did not do in their career, whether they were good or bad. Just want to talk about players that used to play in the NFL and that used to play in college, just to educate people. It's easy to talk about the Tom Brady's, the A.J. Browns, the Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Derek Carr, so many of those, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson. It's easy to talk about these guys. Well, we can talk about forgotten NFL players. Number 1 for Do You Remember? Again, all these players on Do You Remember are guys that weren't necessarily the best in the NFL or necessarily the best in college football. They had some good moments. There are players that I just want to continue to educate people about football and bring people together, like it says in the trailer, through the world of football. Number 1 of Do You Remember? Cody Kessler. Not necessarily a big name, and Browns fans may remember that team, but not necessarily the quarterback, Cody Kessler. Let's go to his college NFL career. Like I said, folks, these players did not do anything in college or hardly in the NFL. I just want to educate people outside of the easy norms of the Tom Brady, DK Metcalf. We want to talk about guys that didn't do much, but want to highlight other players, not just show my education about football, but I want to help other people increase their knowledge about football. Cody Kessler played at USC from 2012 through the 2015 season. 27 starts for USC, a total of 10,339 passing yards. He started 65.85% of his games. Attempts to completions, 851 of 1,261. Didn't necessarily do a whole lot at USC, obviously why he was a top pick in the draft. He went to the Cleveland Browns, where that team, I believe that season, also had DeShone Kizer on their team, who went 0-16. Probably the only second or third team ever in NFL history to go 0-16. Cody Kessler had 88 touchdowns and 19 interceptions in his time at USC. The only highlight that he truly had, I looked this up, for Cody Kessler at USC, it was September 14th, 2014. Cody Kessler went 31 of 41, 317 yards, 4 touchdowns. He still lost the game, played well, 31 of 41, 317 yards, and 4 touchdowns. But played against Boston College, and they still lost. The point is, folks, I want to be able the opportunity, and obviously Sam John went into USC after that. I want to educate people because it's always so much fun to talk about your favorite players, like current ones in the NFL. Somehow there's a Daniel Jones fan out there. That's your genuine opinion. There's Saquon Barkley fans. There's Jalen Hurts fans. Jordan Howard, who used to be, I believe, still is a running back for the Eagles, former running back for Chicago. It's easy to talk about the guys like Mannings, who I really love. Peyton Manning, my favorite quarterback of all time. But the point is, I want to talk about other players who didn't necessarily have success in the NFL or in college football, but just educate people about all different kinds of players to also prepare myself and other people that if you want to be in the league, if you want to be a broadcaster, you're going to have to remember a lot of names and not just the more popular guys in the NFL. Again, Cody Kessler's time at USC 2012 to 2015, 27 starts, over 10,000 passing yards, had 88 touchdowns and 19 interceptions, a career game September 14th, 2014, 31 of 41, 317 passing yards, 4 touchdowns against Boston College. Come 2016, he was drafted by the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, nothing happens here. These are the NFL forgotten players, hence this segment being called Do You Remember? Cody Kessler in the NFL, 224 attempts for 224 of 349. Didn't complete a lot of passes, didn't have a lot of attempts, had 2,215 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 5 picks. Not a lot, not a great player. That's the whole point of this series, is to talk about players that you forgot. And it's the name again, Do You Remember? The John Allcorn Show, Season 3, Episode 3, exclusively on the Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Network. 3rd round pick and 93rd overall in 2016, sacked 49 times in 3 seasons. And that's counting. I believe he played a short time with the New England Patriots in 2018 and then obviously didn't make the final roster. 3rd round pick, 93rd overall, went to USC. That's the only good thing about his career, was that he went to USC. Didn't do anything there. Had a career game September 14th, 2014. But again, that was in Boston College. Played against Boston College. That's like Alabama playing against the Jayhawks. It's a game, not competition. I want to educate people about players that you forgot. Cody Kessler played at USC from 2012 to 2015 and had nearly 3 full seasons in the NFL, 2.5 seasons with New England, or 2 seasons with the Browns, and had a part of a season or so with the New England Patriots. 3rd round pick, 93rd overall, was part of that Cleveland Browns team that went 0-16 with Hugh Jackson as head coach. This next one, though, people may remember a little bit more for the hardcore NFL fans. Had a good season in 2015, I believe. Running back Chris Ivory, 2006 to 2008, was in college, played at Washington State, undrafted in 2010, signed by the Saints, and a few years later went to the New York Jets. But to talk about quickly of his college career. Again, ladies and gentlemen, for people that are just now tuning in, we're having a new series on the John Allcorn Show, exclusively on the Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Network, where we have a segment called Do You Remember? Where I talk about 2 forgotten NFL players that weren't popular, didn't get anything done in college or the NFL, just to help prepare myself, but to also help educate other people, because it's so easy to talk about popular players in the NFL. Chris Ivory had a total of 534 rushing yards in college at Washington State, along with 4 touchdowns. Undrafted in 2010, signed by the New Orleans Saints, because a year before that season, though, that draft, they also got Mark Ingram in the draft. Mark Ingram, with Chris Ivory. That could have been something. Obviously, didn't work out that way. Chris Ivory, in his career, 1,227 total attempts, over almost 5,300 total rushing yards, 29 touchdowns. Had a career year in 2015. The only year the Jets in the past 15 years, from 2015 to 2010, where they were relevant. The Jets went 10-6 that year, just barely missed the playoffs. Ryan Fitzpatrick had a career year. 10-6, just barely missed the playoffs. Chris Ivey had a career game that season, October 4th, 2015. Guarantee it was against Miami. 29 carries, 166 yards, 5.7 yards per carry, along with 1 touchdown. The point is, and I love doing this, is to educate people about football and to not just talk about players that are easy to talk about. Chris Ivory, who played at Washington State, undrafted in 2010 by the Saints, had a very good career year in 2015 with the New York Jets. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to a lot more topics to go through tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get to another commercial break, and we'll be right back. We're going through 4 more NFL teams and their schedules for 2022. A lot more to go, but I love talking football here on the John Allcorn Show, exclusively on the Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Network. We're going to go through the 2022 Packers and their schedule, and we will go from there. Folks, excuse me, as we have some internet issues, we are back. Unlike the Packers in the Super Bowl, the Packers Week 1 face off against the Minnesota Vikings. Not a conversation or debate. It's obviously going to be the Green Bay Packers. Week 2, Chicago Bears CEO faces off against his team. Aaron Rodgers faces off against the Chicago Bears. And the famous words of quarterback Aaron Rodgers, "I own you." He owns the Bears. There's a reason why the Bears haven't done much outside of them trading for Cutler, outside of them trying to sign Mike Glennon and Mark Sanchez in 2016-2017 offseason to a 3-year deal, 15 per year. Week 3, they faced off against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's always going to be one delusional reporter out there. At this point in time, should have been gone long ago. There is no debate in any category, Rodgers or Brady. It's that simple. It's Tom Brady. That's simple, folks. But week 3, they face off against Tampa Bay. I'm going to have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beating the Green Bay Packers. Week 5, they face off against the New York lonely, pathetic New York Giants. They're going to beat the New York Giants week 5. The Green Bay Packers are going to, excuse me, folks, look at having some technical issues. Week 6, I believe they face off. Let's see. Excuse me, folks, we're having some technical issues here, but let me look that up. Home opponents. Okay. So let me go see, folks. We will continue some more NFL talk here, having some technical issues. The Packers this season, I generally think it's going to be the same thing over and over. Is Devontae Adams a big factor for them in the regular season? Yes, I'm not debating. He's a top receiver in the NFL. Did Devontae Adams help the Packers get to a Super Bowl? Did Devontae Adams help them win a Super Bowl? No, that was Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb. At some point, we know the connection between Adams and Carr at Fresno State, that can be changed. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the Green Bay Packers. They're not a Super Bowl team. If they won a Super Bowl team before, how are they going to be a Super Bowl team now? They didn't make it to the Super Bowl with Adams. You think their changes increase afterwards? Sammy Watkins? No. But, excuse me, folks, our technical issues are gone. Looking at my phone because my computer having a hard time. But, hey, technical issues, it happens. October 16th, they do face off against the New York Jets. Oh, my gosh. But it's going to be the New York Jets that lose again. Another victim to the Green Bay Packers. Next week, they do face off against the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my, oh, my. The Washington Commanders are going to have an interesting season. Let's just say that the least, but they will lose against the Packers. The Bills will beat the Green Bay Packers that following week, November 6th. Green Bay faces off against Detroit. Green Bay wins that game. They face off against Dallas November 13th, and they will lose. I know, I'm not a Cowboys fan. Let's not throw out the confetti and say, John, you need to be directed. No, I'm picking the Cowboys to beat the Packers November 13th. I'm not saying they're right. Most of my takes aren't necessarily right. But I can give you my position, my opinion. Green Bay Packers will beat the Tennessee Titans November 17th. The Green Bay Packers will beat the Eagles November 27th. Like I'm saying, like Devontae Adams didn't help them get to a Super Bowl, didn't help them win a Super Bowl, but obviously they're going to win a division again. Not necessarily because they're a top 5 team in the NFL, because they're in the NFC North. Be honest. Kent Cousins, that terrible offensive line. Chicago, Justin Fields has promise, but still a young guy. Detroit, who knows who their quarterback is? Who knows if they're going to have the same head coach in 3 to 4 seasons? Be honest. Minnesota, Detroit, like really, be honest. And the Bears, those 3 teams are not beating the Packers for the division. Not because the Packers are a top 5 team, because they're in the NFC North. Put them in the NFC West. Put them in the AFC East. We're going to have a totally different conversation. They'll beat Chicago December 4th. December 19th, though, a couple days after my birthday, they will lose against the Los Angeles Rams. We'll talk about being the Packers being dominant in their division. But this is Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald is back. In the famous words of Slim Shady, guess who's back? Back again. Christmas Day, oh me, oh my, the Dolphins are going to get coal in their stocking because they are going to lose against the Green Bay Packers on Christmas Day, New Year's Day. Man, I would hate to be a Vikings fan January 1st because you will lose against the Green Bay Packers. And that last week of the season, January 8th, 2023, Detroit will lose against the Packers. I believe the Packers could have 12, 13 wins this year. It's going to be the same thing over and over. If you really look at their record, let's go back. If I'm being brutally honest, in fact, I'm actually going to look this up on the computer. They're a fraudulent, overrated, overhyped team. Really, put them in the AFC East. Put them in the AFC North. Put them in AFC West. Put them in the division with the Ravens. The Packers are not getting to the NFC Championship game nearly 3 years in a row. Be honest. Yes, you won 13 late championships. We're not talking about the past. The Green Bay Packers absolutely are an overrated, overhyped team. We're looking at Aaron Rodgers, Packers 2021 record. And then we'll go there year by year. If we're being honest, let's look at their stats. The 2021 season, look this up, 13-4. You lost in the divisional round. Okay, then let's go to 2020. Well, oh, right. You lost in the conference championship game against the Niners. Let's go to 2019. You lost in the conference championship game. 13-3. Let's go to 2018. If I can continue to prove my point, obviously Rodgers was injured, 6-9-1. You missed the playoffs in 2018. My point is, folks, I'm not saying that we know Rodgers is a future Hall of Famer. The same discussions, the same arguments, Brady or Rodgers. We know Rodgers getting a gold jacket whenever he does retire. Not doubting the skill of Davante Adams. He's a top receiver in the NFL. The stats show that last year, and they continue to show that even before the 2020 season. The Packers are the same team with or without Davante Adams. But the question is for you, do you think the Green Bay Packers make the Super Bowl, or do the Green Bay Packers have a better chance of making the Super Bowl with or without Davante Adams? We are now going to have our last three teams for the 2022 schedule. We're going to go through the Rams, the Vikings, and the Saints. We got so many more topics here on the Allcorn Show. Love talking football with y'all. We have this segment tonight. Do you remember? Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to the 2022 Rams and their schedule. Had some internet issues. Week 1, they face off against Buffalo. Really, really fun game. I picked Buffalo to win by 2. It's going to be so hard, though. I get the Arizona Broncos and so many great players. You got Jalen Ramsey, those guys. It's so hard. I get it. Stafford, Allen. Stafford has a ring. Josh Allen is chasing that ring because if they don't get it in the next year or two, or maybe three years, then I believe their championship window can get so much there that they don't even have a chance. They have to win the division. This year, I picked the Rams to lose to the Bills only by 2 points. Week 2, they faced off against the Atlanta Falcons. Oh me, oh my. Falcons lose again. The Falcons lose again. Week 3, they face off against the Arizona Cardinals. It's going to be the same thing in the wildcard round where if we go back, folks, ladies and gentlemen, to that playoff game, Kyler Murray, 2 interceptions. They start off on a hot streak. They were 2 games up in the division against the Rams. Rams win the Super Bowl. We know the story. That's going to be more of that, I believe, in this game. Yeah, you got Hollywood Brown. Yes, DeAndre Hopkins is spent into like week 6, week 7. You have Hollywood Brown. You have James Conner. They're going to start off hot this season, but I just don't see them beating the Rams in week 3. Week 4, they face off against the San Francisco 49ers, where the Niners are going to lose against the Los Angeles Rams. Week 6, the Los Angeles Rams will beat the Carolina Panthers, and no matter whose quarterback you have, even if you just had Aaron Donald, they're going to be fine. They have Allen Robinson. You have potentially Odell could come back on a really cheap deal. And don't say it's not possible. They did it with Donald. They did it with Cooper Kupp. They signed Allen Robinson. They have Matthew Stafford. The Rams are going to be just fine for multiple years to come. But for this game, week 6 on Fox, they're going to destroy the Carolina Panthers. Week 7 is a bye week, so we go all the way to week 8 as they face off again against the San Francisco 49ers. Again, 1:25 p.m. Central. They're still going to beat the Niners. At some point, I don't know if it's week 6, week 7, week 8, whenever, at some point, the Niners are going to have to put in Trey Lance. It was a failed experiment of Jimmy Garoppolo. And I don't think anybody's even talking about that. Jimmy Garoppolo is not a starting quarterback. That hasn't been the case for multiple seasons. The 2020 Super Bowl was the case. So Richard Sherman blew a cover, but that's neither here nor there. Some point, the San Francisco 49ers are going to have to start Trey Lance, and that could make the game more interesting. But since it's Matthew Stafford and the Rams, they're going to be just fine against the San Francisco 49ers in week 8. We go to week 9. They face off against Tampa. Oh, no, it's that divisional round playoff game again. I can't bet against Tom Brady. I'm going to have to pick the Bucs in a very close game. Week 10, they face off against the Cardinals again. How do I put this delicately? while being kind but also being brutally honest. The Cardinals are a fraudulent team, and they're going to lose against the Rams. I couldn't help myself. Week 11, they faced off against the New Orleans Saints once again. They're going to beat the Saints. They're going to, I believe, lose against Kansas City, but it's a really, really, really close game. Both quarterbacks, Mahomes and Stafford, are future first ballot Hall of Famers. They both have their rings. They both are on the right teams. Perfect organization for both franchises. We go to, I believe, week 13 against Seattle. It doesn't matter who's quarterback. This is a make it or break it year to determine if Pete Carroll is on the hot seat in 2023. Week 14, they faced off against the Las Vegas Raiders. Could be some distractions this season, but overall, Devontae Adams, even with Devontae Adams, though, it helps against the Rams. Well, you got Robinson, you got Cubb, you got Everett, your tight end. You could potentially have Odell on a really, really cheap Golden Girls type deal. You have your running backs. They just have players. They have the veterans, but they also have guys that can get the job done, but could also be starters somewhere else. Christian Wilson says, sounds like this season will be a hard one for the Niners. I agree, though, and don't tell Isaiah, or Isaiah will see this at some point because this is on my personal Facebook page. I have the Cardinals the Niners just barely beating the Cardinals to get to the playoffs. I think the Cardinals would just barely make the playoffs. Yes, I know it's going to be a hard year, but I think the Rams are not going to have that struggle that they had early on. You have that season under your belt. You have that ring. You have Cup. You have Robinson, one of the most, if not the most, underrated receiver in the NFL. You have Cooper Kupp. You have Stafford. They're going to be just fine. Andrew Whitworth did retire. Shout out to a legend who played in Cincinnati. Congrats, my man, to a wonderful, wonderful, great career. Week 15, December 19th, they face off against the Green Bay Packers. Matthew Stafford, the Rams have a much better team. Like I said, folks, before, even with Devontae Adams, did they get to a Super Bowl? No. 13-3, 12-4, if not 13-3 the past 3 seasons. And all of them resulted in 0 Super Bowl appearances. They haven't had a Super Bowl appearance in, 10, 11 years? 10 to 11, 12 seasons? Get that garbage out of here. They're not doing anything in the playoffs much in terms of getting to a Super Bowl. Week 16, Christmas Day, Broncos are going to lose against the Rams. I can't, when you have the social media team who is obviously not one of my favorites, but especially when he posts a video of Russell Wilson saying, Broncos country, let's ride. So cringe, so cringe. Week 17, they face off against LA. Trevor, I'm sorry, buddy. I am so sorry, but I'm picking the Rams to beat the Chargers. Week 17. Week 18, we have them face off against the Seattle Seahawks. Make it or break it year. Could be a really long year for the Seattle Seahawks and potentially some other teams in that division. Depending on when they do start Trey Lance, that's not necessarily going to change or advocate that much of what could happen with Seattle season. It's great you did get Jamal Adams. Now, even then, and all in the grand scheme of things, was signing Jamal Adams worth it? Oh, wait. Was it worth it? I honestly think, obviously, the answer would be no. But let's go to the 2022 Vikings schedule. And if Steven's not going to agree with me, you know what? That's the whole point of the football world. Whether we agree or disagree, I'm here to bring people close together through the world of football. Week 1, the Minnesota Vikings and Kent Cousins face off against the Green Bay Packers, as the Packers will beat them by 8 to 10 points. I mean, yes, they have Sammy Watkins, but nobody's, I think, convinced or debating a receiving core for the Vikings. Justin Jefferson, Sammy Watkins, who's been on a couple of teams, it's obviously going to be the Green Bay Packers, even though Minnesota, I believe, has a better receiving core. Week 2, they face off against the Eagles, and you know what? I'm happy to be wrong. I'm even though I know 100% I could be wrong about this, and anybody can clown or laugh at me or send me DMs, and I'm okay with that. I believe the Eagles will beat the Packers. Week 2. Could be wrong, but I'm just going to go out on a take. I know I'm going to be wrong, but I'm going to go and believe to say, hey, I think the Eagles can beat the Packers in Week 2. Week 3, they face off against Detroit, who legally should not be counted as an NFL franchise. They will beat Detroit. They will beat the Saints in Week 4. They will beat Chicago. Well, actually, no, they will lose against Chicago. They will lose against the Saints. Because you also remember last year, folks, when the Viking season was struggling, for the Lions to get their first win of the season, it was a game winner, I believe, in overtime against Detroit, and they lost. Jared Goff and Tyrell Williams was their best receiver in 2021, and lost. Absolutely disgraceful. Vikings are not going to have. They're going to have another season where, we're going to be good, and then they miss the playoffs once again. Week 6. I'm going to go on the limb and say Miami beats the Vikings Week 6. Week 8, I no longer believe, folks and gentlemen, of the Arizona Cardinals. So I will, in my genuine opinion, pick the Minnesota Vikings to beat the Arizona Cardinals. Week 9, the Washington Commanders. It's just weird. I don't know. I get Curtis Samuel's a little bit injured. We don't know what's going to be the situation with Terry McLaurin. Are they going to have a new contract set? So I'll say in both ways. If they have a new contract set, they'll be just fine. If they don't, they're going to be screwed. That isn't necessarily a make it or break it year because they're not making the playoffs. Let's be brutally honest. Ron Rivera, I'm sorry, but I'm not convinced of him as a coach. I'm sorry, you had that really great year in 2015. Von Miller, or I think the Carolina Panthers for giving my former Broncos that Super Bowl win. I'm sorry, I'm not convinced of Ron Rivera as a head coach. The best you could have done is Carson Wentz? Are you serious? Not all redheads stick together. Yeah, not all redheads know each other either. Carson Wentz is the best you can do. Get that out of here. Week 10, they face off against the Buffalo Bills. Will lose against Buffalo. And Chrissy, I know is going to like my answer for the Minnesota Vikings Week 11. The Dallas Cowboys are going to, this is not necessarily that far-fetched. The Dallas Cowboys are going to beat the Minnesota Vikings. Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb. This is obviously internet issues. CeeDee Lamb is going to have a make it or break it year. More importantly, is going to have a make it or break it year. Dallas Schultz, I don't know. And again, another drama with a receiving weapon. Oh my gosh. Oh my. Week 12, the New England Patriots will beat Minnesota. Week 13 and Week 14, Minnesota will have back-to-back wins to beat the Jets in Week 13. To beat Detroit in Week 14 with a lot of uncertainty with the quarterback position in Detroit. And obviously, both teams have question marks long-term for their starting franchise quarterback. Again, Minnesota has a great receiver in Justin Jefferson. Dalvin Cook can be really good if he can stay healthy. I said this at the beginning, if he can stay healthy. Week 15, the Colts face off against the Vikings. Matt Ryan, Kent Cousins. Both teams who they call him Matty Ice because he goes ice cold in the playoffs. I still believe, though, the Colts will beat the Vikings Week 15. Week 16, the Minnesota Vikings face off against the New York Giants. I'll say right here, not just in this game, I picked the Dallas Cowboys to win the division, and the Eagles coming close second to make the playoffs. The Giants will lose against the Minnesota Vikings, even though they don't have an option. They have to win. Doesn't mean they will. Make it or break a year for, of course, Daniel Jones. Not picking up his fifth-year option. That could be a really, really big deal. But also, just because they pick up your fifth-year option doesn't mean it's going to work out. They can pick up your fifth-year option, or there's something, an F word that players really hate, franchise tag. Absolutely something, like, I can't really, obviously I've been an athlete, but seeing it from hearing athletes in interviews or talking to people, I don't blame them for hating that franchise tag. Week 17, they lose against Green Bay, and Week 18, they lose against the Chicago Bears. I have the Vikings missing the playoffs. I think it's really going to be interesting moving forward, though. If you look up just 1 second, Kirk Cousins and his contracts. Give me just a minute, folks. Kirk Cousins contracts. I'm really interested to see, like, how many more years do they have before they can just let him go in free agency. Let's see right here. Kirk Cousins and his contract. 3-year, 84, full guaranteed. Let's see. Kirk Cousins contract details. Break this down. Let's go back and see, when could Kirk Cousins be an free agent, unless the Vikings decide to, you know what. Technically, after the 2023 season, the Minnesota Vikings could release or trade him and have only $12.5 million in dead cap. Now, mind you, this is pre-June 1. So theoretically, if they wait till after June and late June, early July, they could technically trade him before training camp in 2023. If they don't do any of that, Kirk Cousins is a free agent after 2025. So you have 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. Obviously, he's not going to be there to the end of the 2025 season. With what the Bears are going to do with Justin Fields in Chicago, he is going to improve week by week. Minnesota Vikings, I believe after this, I believe them. Don't think this is necessarily a wild take. 2022 and 2023 are going to be Kirk Cousins' last 2 years to potentially be a starter, not just with the Vikings, but 2022 and 2023 will be the last 2 years of Kirk Cousins being a starter in the NFL. You would have to make the playoffs this year, win a division, and get to a Super Bowl in the next 2 seasons to deem to be a starter. Either it's with Minnesota or it's with, heck knows who's out there, what's going to happen with Miami and Tua. You would have to win a Super Bowl this year or next year for the Vikings to re-sign Kirk Cousins, or to keep Kirk Cousins for however long Kirk Cousins decides to play in the NFL. A base salary this year of $10 million. Kirk Cousins is guaranteed 15 this year, 31 against the cap, 36 against the cap in 2023. In 2024, only $12.5 million. So theoretically, this could be Kirk Cousins' last 2 years of his contract. I don't think they'll go that far. I think they'll miss the playoffs. But again, the only way for Kirk Cousins to be a starter after 2024 or after the 2023 season, whether it's with Minnesota or another team, he has to win a Super Bowl. If they miss the playoffs the next 2 years and or make the playoffs and get scorched immediately, he's done as a starter. He should have been done a while back. But in the 2020 or 2021 offseason, what did the Vikings do yet again? They gave him a new contract. There's only one thing I can say about Kirk Cousins and or the Minnesota Vikings, or both. Perfectly overrated. But ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the 2022 Saints as we finish up our script tonight. We got a lot more topics to go over. Super excited. Love talking football. Let's jump right back into it. The John Allcorn Show, exclusively on the Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Network. The 2022 Saints, week 1, they face off against the Falcons. I'm going to have to pick Atlanta on this one, only because Drake London and Kyle Pitts, I just, like, they seem like really, really good players. Week 2, they faced off against Tampa Bay. Do they have a chance? No. Do they have a chance week 3? Yes. They win against the Panthers, but lose against Tampa Bay in week 2, lose against Atlanta in week 1. Week 4, they face off the Minnesota Vikings and Kent Cousins in London. But I believe Drake London will win in London they have brain fart. Oh my goodness. But you know what? That happens. Things happen. We're here to have fun. We make mistakes. That is okay. They will Saints or the Vikings. Week 4 in London. I'm gonna give the slight edge to the Vikings. I know what I just said about Kirk Cousins this or Minnesota that or something. But just in this game, we're not talking about the whole season. They're gonna beat Minnesota in week 4. Week 5, the New Orleans Saints face off against the Seattle Seahawks. Both teams are a disaster, not just because against the cap. The Saints have a new head coach. Seattle could have a head coach for the next year or two, but even just talking about this game, both don't really offer a whole lot. But I'm going to have to pick the Saints. And in week 5, week 6, they faced off against my Bengals. Saints have no chance. My Bengals win week 6. Week 7, they lose against Arizona. I believe Kyler Murray with his mobility. I know what I said about Arizona, but it's going to be the same thing in 2020 and 2021. They start off hot, and they just completely falter towards the end of the season. Week 8, the Saints will lose against the Raiders. Week 9, it's tough. Like, I just don't know. Who's going to be the Ravens' number 1 receiver in 2022? I don't know. But for now, I'm still going to pick the Ravens, though, because of Lamar Jackson as a player. Again, who knows what's going to happen with the Ravens? Who knows what's going to happen with the Browns? It's like the Kardashians drama just flooded in to the AFC North. Week 10, they will lose against the Steelers. Kenny Pickett, I know was young, but also trained in Pittsburgh, trained in that same facility as the Pittsburgh Steelers. So obviously he's kind of familiar with Mike Tomlin and the organization. Week 11, they lose against the Rams. Week 12, if Jimmy Garoppolo plays, because I believe at some point, if Trey Lance, if the San Francisco 49ers are going to start Trey Lance in 2022, it's going to be a couple of weeks before they face off against the Saints in week 12, November 27th. Trey Lance starts, they win. Jimmy Garoppolo starts either because of injury or any other factor, the Saints are going to win this football game. Week 13, the Saints are going to get destroyed on Monday. Not necessarily destroyed, they're going to get embarrassed. Monday Night Football against Tampa Bay. Week 14, a bye week, so we go to week 15, December 17th or December 18th. We'll get to it as we get closer. Saints face off against Atlanta. Drake London, Kyle Pitts. Atlanta wins that game by 5 or 6 points. Week 16, oh no. The Saints face off against, oh my gosh, I keep laughing because just as a Bengals fan, it's hilarious. The Saints face off against the Browns. I give it to the Saints. What? The good chance you're going to have Jacoby Brissett playing that game. Jacoby Brissett has been on the Colts. He was drafted the 2nd round in 2014, I believe. Then he's been on the Colts. He's been on Miami. This is his 4th or 5th team in less than 9 seasons. They beat the Browns in week 16. Week 17, New Year's Day, the Eagles beat the Saints in their home stadium. Week 18, though, Saints face off against the Panthers. At this point in time, for the Panthers, in Week 18, Game 17. This is going to be a factor of what happens with their head coach, or really, honestly, who is going to be their starting quarterback in 2023. A lot of things that are a huge question mark for the Panthers and so many teams. We went through 8 teams very quickly in their 2022 NFL schedule. We also talked about a series called Do You Remember, where it's so easy to talk about in the world of football, where it's so easy to talk about your favorite NFL players, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, and Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Matt Jones, what could happen with Tua, Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, so many guys. It's so easy to talk about the guys that people know. But it's to help me prepare and other people to prepare. That if you want to be in this industry, you're in terms of podcasting or Fox, whatever you want to do, you're going to have to know players just outside of the people that are popular to talk about. That series, Do You Remember, is from June to the end of July every single year. A very limited series. Next topic number 4. I know a lot to talk about, but it's going to be such a fun year. The Las Vegas Raiders re-signed Hunter Renfrow to a 2-year extension. He's earned it. Coming out of Clemson, or Clemson beat Alabama, anytime Alabama loses, it makes my day. Obviously, they lost this year, so that honestly, that's one of the very few in rare times I am happy to say and happy to be wrong about the team I picked to lose. Anytime Alabama loses, Chef Kiss, is a beautiful day. The Las Vegas Raiders signed Hunter Renfrow to a 2-year, multi-year extension. To kind of break it down even more, remember, folks, 5th-round pick in 2019. He's had 15 touchdowns in the first week, 5 touchdowns per season, over 200 receptions, nearly 2,300 plus yards, 149th overall pick. Usually, when you look at guys that are a mid-round, close to Mr. Irrelevant, 5'10", 185, that's not necessarily a guy you think that's going to get extended, that's going to make plays in the NFL. But that's the exact opposite with Raiders receiver Hunter Renfrow. To break that down even more for the Raiders, we are talking about the 2022 Raiders offseason. All the moves that they made. Number 1, quarterback Derek Carr gets a 3-year extension for $121.5 million. If you even break that down any further, as I kind of do the numbers here, $125.5 million divided by 3. Derek Carr's getting $40 a year. The question is it a make it or break it year for quarterback Derek Carr? The simple answer to that question is yes. Your reunite with your receiver, your friend, your homeboy, your bro from Fresno State, Derek Carr being, I believe, a 2nd-round pick, not a top pick in the draft, unlike Manziel, but who's stayed longer in the NFL. Skip Bayless, I think you know the answer to that one. Derek Carr, they had to make the playoffs this year. I understand his first playoff appearance, they obviously gave it all they got. Thankfully, my Bengals won, but they're going to have to win multiple playoff games. You have no excuses now. You re-signed Hunter Renfrow, trying to get Waller back. You traded for Devontae Adams, which, according to potential reports, who knows what it is or isn't true in the NFL. I don't know those people or people that know them. But Mays potentially has been in the works the past year or two, depending on how Devontae Adams has felt in terms of how long is Aaron Rodgers going to stay in Green Bay or in the NFL. The Raiders trade for receiver Devontae Adams, and he gets a 5-year, $140 million deal. Obviously, has deserved it. I don't think anybody's necessarily debating that one. $140 million. Deserved every single penny. $28 million a year. I agree. No receiver drama there. We already have enough of that in the NFL. Earned it. 5 years, $140. Derek Carr gets suspended for 3 years, $121.5, gets $40 million a year for 3 seasons. Number 3, Max Crosby gets signed to a 4-year, $98.89 million deal. Phenomenal deal. He deserved to get paid. I don't think anybody necessarily debating that one. Has deserved it. I believe he came out of Clemson. I could be wrong about that one. 98.98, nearly close to $100 million over 4 seasons. He's getting nearly $25 million. Earned it. Number 4, the Raiders signed Chandler Jones to a 3-year. That's what I'm not in love with. $51 million over 3 seasons. Chandler Jones gets $17 a year. I talked about in 2020 offseason, before the 2020 season. Chandler Jones is a future first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think hardly anybody would debate that at all. He isn't flashy to talk about necessarily like a Khalil Mack or Aaron Donald, but has gotten it done. Chandler Jones is about, Chandler Jones is 32. He just turned 32. And he's getting, I believe, a 3-year deal. Don't agree with that. It's not as bad, though, as the Bills signing Von Miller to that 6-year deal. Don't know how it's going to help, but we'll have to see, ladies and gentlemen, what happens with that one. Number 5, the Raiders re-signing Hunter Renfrow to a 2-year, $13 million deal, nearly getting $17 million per season. Number 6, in a grand total, from re-signing Derek Carr to trading and signing Devontae Adams to signing Max Crosby to trading and signing Chandler Jones to signing receiver Hunter Renfrow, the Las Vegas Raiders have spent over $440 million to 5 players. With all that being said, it is a make it or break it year for Derek Carr. Is there a lot of pressure for the Las Vegas Raiders moving forward? Yes. The simple answer to that question is yes. But ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back after this quick 30-second break. We're going now to our last couple of topics. Topic number 7. Quarterbacks under the most pressure in 2022. Definitely going to be really interesting. But some of these may be unpopular, but you know what? That's kind of the point. Quarterbacks under the most pressure, for me, they're not in any order, so let's not freak out. It's not because of bias or anything else. Not in any order, but number 1, again, these quarterbacks under the most pressure in 2022, not in any order. Number 1, Tua. I always butcher his last name, so I don't want to completely embarrass myself. But Tua is under the most pressure. You went to Alabama. I believe you won a championship. They traded for Tyreek Hill. They dressed pieces in the draft. You got your defense who's going to continue to do what they did in 2020 and in 2021. You had the pieces. There's no excuses for the Miami Dolphins. You also have to remember, ladies and gentlemen, that the Dolphins were close to trading for another player. They were so close to potentially getting Tom Brady and then Sean Payton as their head coach, part owner, etc. No excuse for Tua in year 3. Kyler Murray, no excuses for him at all. He had your first playoff game in multiple years since Carson Palmer's time in Arizona with head coach Bruce Arians. In 3 years, and then we'll talk about the playoff game. In 3 years, he's 22, 23, and 1. That first game was week 3 or week 4 against Detroit in his rookie year in 2019. He missed 3 games, 24 touchdowns to 10 interceptions last year. In the playoff game, 0 TDs and 2 interceptions. Height is obviously a factor. We know that about Kyler Murray. You traded for Hollywood Brown, the Ravens' number 1 receiver. Lamar Jackson obviously is pretty pissed off. You can say whatever you want on social media. but the actions speak louder than words in this situation. Talking about Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. You trade for Hollywood Brown. You have Zach Ertz. You have James Conner. You have a 2020 first round or second round defensive player. You have the pieces. Are we going to see the same thing again this year, just like what we saw in 2020 and 2021? Just like with the Packers, in some sense. They start off hot, they do okay, then come to the playoffs. If they do make the playoffs, it's going to be an absolute disaster. Are we really that shocked? Really? Like, come on. Not really a surprise at all. You have to win this year. You have to win the division. No excuses for Kyler Murray. College didn't like him because Oklahoma, and that's a rival, or now old rival, depending on which teams go to which division and all that. No excuse for Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals this season. Week 3. Quarterback number 3, Ryan Tannehill. Titans drafted Malik Willis in the 3rd round. The question is it a make it or break it year for Ryan Tannehill? Is it a make it or break it year for Ryan Tannehill? Is it? And let's go back to last year. Like I'm looking at Ryan Tannehill. It's the same thing we've seen time and time again. They gave him that contract in the 2020 offseason. Rightfully deserved. But unless Derrick Henry is playing and balling out, this team is a fraud. Ryan Tannehill is a fraud. You can say whatever happened in Miami. I will give you that. Excuse me, I apologize. We're talking about Tennessee. This is an absolute ridiculous. The division is wide open. Obviously, you have the number 1 seed in the AFC. You had the Texans. Seriously? You had the Jaguars, who I believe Trevor Lawrence is the future. They have a bright future. We had Texans. You have, also the Titans we're talking about. You have the Jaguars. The Colts, who missed the playoffs and lost against the Jaguars in the last game of the season and started the season off 0-3. Are you kidding me? This is your starter? Obviously, at some point, they're going to call him Malik Willis. And going back to last year, like talking about some of his stats. Because he's not a starter. Sorry, folks. Quarterback at 89.6. Let's go back to game by game as he ends nearly this 2-hour program of the John Allcorn Show. See me, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, let me fix these technical issues. Ryan Tannehill stats on ESPN app. All right. We're going to go week by week, the game block. All right, you start off. You lose against Arizona week 1. Touchdown, interception. You beat Seattle in overtime by 3. No touchdowns. You beat the Colts. Only scored 25 points. Yeah, 2 interceptions. So whether it's with Derrick Henry or without Derrick Henry, they're not getting to a Super Bowl. They're not winning a championship. And I believe there's a stat, and I could be wrong, whether it's in 2020 or 2021. Someone that watches at some point, please let me know or correct me if I'm wrong. If Derrick Henry does not get 20-plus carries, this team has no chance, or very little chance. Going on, you beat Buffalo. Okay, you had an interception. So even the teams that you're beating, you're playing like you're not even a starting quarterback in the CFL. This is a quarterback? Last year should have been the make it or break it deal, but especially in 2022, of any other quarterback, especially because of his age, Ryan Tannehill is a make it or break it year. I said this about Kate Cousins, where after he's done in Minnesota, that could determine if he's a starter for any team in the National Football League. Regardless, I truly believe, and I could be 100% wrong, but at some point it's going to happen. Ryan Tannehill, this is his last year as a starter with Tennessee, and potentially in the NFL after 2023 or 2024. I don't know the future. I don't know what's going to happen. You lost against the Texans. 4 picks? You're supposed to get it into the playoffs. That division has the Texans, has the Jaguars, has the Colts. And you still got destroyed. That's your quarterback? It's not like all you had is practice squad players when Derrick Henry was injured. You had the weapons, even with Derrick Henry being out. You had Dante Foreman who could make some plays here and there. You have the third stringer or the backup to Dante Foreman out of Texas. What's up, Dante Foreman? That's your quarterback? Like, even going then, you barely beat the Saints by 2 points. Okay, fine. You had an average game, 19-27, 213 yards. You lose against the Steelers. You only score 13 points, 1 pick. Okay, let's go. If I'm being somehow unfair, you beat Miami 34-3. Okay, I'll give you that. It was an okay game. Not bad, but not special. 13-18. Only 120 yards. 2 touchdowns. You should have had more than that. You barely beat the Texans. 3 points. Congrats. I'll give you that. You beat the Texans. Wow. But these teams are an absolute joke. Ryan Tannehill shouldn't be starting for Tennessee or anywhere else. And of course, it's not his job to mentor Malik Willis, because why would you want a guy like Ryan Tannehill who can't even beat Arizona, who can't even beat the Jets? You lost against the Jets in overtime. You completed you threw for nearly 50 passes, and you still lost against the Jets, especially in overtime. I'm passionate about stupid things. I'm passionate about stupid things in the NFL. When stupid things happen, Ryan Tannehill is not a starting quarterback. It is a make it or break it year. You beat Jacksonville 20-0, fine. Trevor Lawrence doesn't have a bright future. 20-31, no touchdowns, no picks. If you destroy them, you probably should have at least a touchdown or so. I'm not saying it's all on him, but the point is the teams that you beat. Let's see, how many playoff teams you beat this year? You beat Buffalo, you beat Kansas City, you beat the Rams. All right, fine. You beat 4 playoff teams. You beat 4 good teams. All the other teams you beat the Texans once, you beat Miami, you lose against Pittsburgh, you lost against New England, you lost against Houston, you lost against the Jets in overtime, and lose against Arizona week 1. We understand in the NFL, week 1 can be a big factor for teams moving forward or how their season is going to happen. It's a make it or break it year for him. Another quarterback that is under pressure, Lamar Jackson. I get all the jokes. Oh, he's just a running back because he runs really well. Partly it's because it's true. Lamar Jackson, though, the style of play that he plays, how he plays, he's apt to get hurt. And obviously that's true. Orlando Brown in the offseason gets traded to Kansas City. He wanted to be, I believe, right tackle or right guard. They trade him to Kansas City. They trade his so-called number 1 receiver, even though he needed a true number 1 receiver. Yeah, they don't have one. The way he plays, he's apt to get hurt. He still hasn't truly improved as a passer. You have an MVP. Your playoff record is what, 1-3? Are you serious? You beat the Colts and Phillip Rivers in 2021 last year or the year before. The 2020 season. January 2021. You beat the Colts in playoff. I'll give you credit for that. That's a playoff win. 1-3. The Browns destroyed the quarterback market. Not just for Lamar Jackson, not just for any other quarterback, for the entire National Football League. Lamar Jackson has 1 playoff win. They didn't play that well either. But they won. I'll give you credit for that. Joe Burrow, his second year, went to the Super Bowl. 3 playoff wins. His second year, he already has over double the playoff wins of Lamar Jackson. And he's only in his 3rd year. I'll give you 2018 because that was still Joe Flacco's team, but he gave the reins to Lamar. I'll give you that. 2019, 2020, 2021, obviously injury, but the way and the style that he plays, it's just like Saquon Barkley. The only difference is Lamar Jackson is a quarterback and a thrower. It's still, I don't believe he's that type of team. He's not going to throw for 4,000 yards. And that's not how this offense is. It's great for a quarterback to be mobile. It's great for a quarterback to be able to use his legs. But if that is your first and your main bread and butter, you're not going to win a Super Bowl. You're not going to appear in a Super Bowl. And if you do, it's very rare. There's one team, one player in the past 10 years where their main mobility is their legs. You're not a great deep passer. You so far haven't attended minicamp. I'm not here to put words in your mouth. Lamar Jackson, come on the show or say something. It's just weird because it's not like a similar situation with quarterbacks in the past where, oh, they don't want to pay me, screw them all called out like Le'Veon Bell did for the Steelers. They want to give you the money. They're giving you the truck, the Bentley, the Social Security number, everything. But it's just odd. It's different. Lamar Jackson won't take the money. The way the Ravens have won, their pride, their bread and butter, is not paying their quarterback. You won the Super Bowl in 2000. Not because of Trent Dilfer. That defense and the running attack for Baltimore has been their bread and butter. Baltimore is not going to pay $230. And if they're not going to pay $230+ million, you think they're going to pay him $260? Lamar Jackson has not earned $230 million. Let's say the Ravens pay him that. The contract that the Browns gave Deshaun Watson. There's a good chance he's going to get injured next year, and that investment is pretty much down the water. If you give him last year until the injuries, let's just talk about the first couple of weeks. Fine. You played against Las Vegas. You lost. You only scored 27 points. You beat Detroit only by 2. You had an interception. You lost, obviously, against Cincinnati. You beat the Browns only by 6 for the Browns to miss the playoffs. The last time the Baltimore Ravens paid a quarterback after a Super Bowl win, obviously, different situation because Lamar hasn't won a Super Bowl. 1-3 in the playoffs. I believe 1-2, but correct me if I'm wrong. The Ravens paid Joe Flacco in 2013 after their Super Bowl win. 9 years, $187 million. And he got $106 million the first 4 years. $26.5 million the first 4 seasons. Joe Flacco only had 6 more seasons with Baltimore after the 2013 offseason signing. Only 3 winning seasons with him after the 2013 contract. After starting that contract in March of 2013, he's missed 13 games since then. If this isn't already a reason, many reasons why Baltimore shouldn't sign Lamar Jackson to a new contract. It shouldn't be that hard. Lamar Jackson has not earned it. They're willing to pay you. The question is now really at what cost? You pay Lamar Jackson. It's going to continue to destroy because if Lamar Jackson gets 240, 250, and it's 1-3, a losing record in the playoffs, where Joe Burrow, his second year, went to the Super Bowl, 3 playoff wins, nearly triple your playoff wins, and only his second year in the NFL. How much is he going to get? The starting out would nearly be $300+ million. And if the Bengals go back to a Super Bowl in the 2-3 years, I don't know if they will, but let's say they do, or they get multiple playoff wins again, then he's going to get $320+ million. You're adding maybe another $100 million to that contract. We know the Ravens front office is pissed. We know they're pissed because of that contract the Browns gave their a player for the contract they gave Deshaun Watson. Lamar Jackson is not worth $230 million. If they pay him, they will live to regret it. Quarterback number 5 is Carson Wentz. Second overall pick in 2016 after the Eagles the Vikings gave their first round pick to the Eagles, won a Super Bowl because of Nick Foles. He had a year with the Colts, disappointing. Started the year 0-3. If Carson Wentz and the Washington Commanders do not get off to a strong start, do not make the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen, Carson Wentz is done as a starter in the NFL. Drafted out of North Dakota State in 2016. Nearly 6 years later, there's a good chance he could be done as a starter in the NFL. That's one of the many reasons why they say A player only lasts 3 to 4 years in the NFL, and nothing is ever guaranteed. Anything can change. I wish him the best, but he's under pressure. Number 6 is quarterback Matt Ryan. Like I said, this year there could be a chance where he could lose to 31 NFL teams. That's the stat right there, and they call him Matty Ice because he's ice cold and his inconsistency to get to the playoffs. Number 7 is quarterback Jalen Hurts. Now, shocker, you got A.J. Brown, you got all those weapons. They are trying to prove and say, hey, we believe in Jalen Hurts. They got to the playoffs. Obviously, we know what was going to happen. You play Tampa Bay, you're going to get destroyed. Not a huge shocker. Give them the weapons, just like Tua. This is the year that they have to produce. Every single play, any single mistake could ruin their starting career, not just with their team they got drafted by, but potentially their starting career in the NFL. When GMs and front office staff look at signing a player to potentially be the starter, you look at what did you do with your original team and how that could help us with our franchise in the next season. Last 2 is Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold. Matt Rule, we know the whole story, talked about rebuilding Baylor. Sam Darnold had a great 3-game start here for the Carolina Panthers this past season. Then they went downhill, had a really decent game against the Houston Texans. And from there, they just went downhill, just like the 2020 Panthers did with Teddy Bridgewater. He's going to have to produce this year. Last one is Daniel Jones. They declined his 5th-year option. Daniel Jones balls out. He gets a new contract with the Giants. Now that question is, since it is a make it or break it year for Daniel Jones, since they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, now who's a make it or break it year is running back Saquon Barkley. That is our last topic of tonight. Saquon Barkley, make it or break year. The easy answer is yes. The only difference between him and McCaffrey got paid, which makes it even worse. Drafted in 2018, 2 touchdowns last year, obviously got injured. Rookie of the year, 2018, I believe. You look at his numbers. Let's go to this past year before he got injured. This guy hit 1 touchdown against Atlanta. We know what the station is with the Giants. The Giants, we all know, shouldn't have drafted Daniel Jones, much less drafted Daniel Jones in the 1st round. The same draft as Dwayne Haskins. That's a situation we didn't expect to happen. You shouldn't have drafted him in the first place, much less in the 1st round. You serious? It's not the 2019 draft was that great. You just had a draft in 2018. You had guys like Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, you had Josh Rosen, so many great or very exciting quarterbacks at the time. He has to ball out this year. Going back to 2018, he produced Saquon Barkley's first year. Saquon Barkley had 261 attempts, 1,370 yards, and 11 touchdowns. Everything was looking bright. Great year in 2018. But I said when he got drafted, the way and the style he plays, he could have 15 carries for 27 yards and bust one out for 80 yards. And that totally changes his average per attempts. And so you're like, wow, he had 120 plus yards. Well, let's look at everything before that big play. The way he plays is like Lamar Jackson without being a quarterback. 2018, Rookie of the Year. You go to, I believe, 2019, 217 yards, 1,000 yards. Still some good numbers, but you start to see the dip. He missed some games. 2020, obviously a lot of injuries. Only played 2 games in 2020. 2021, injured yet again. 162 attempts, 593 yards, and only 2 touchdowns. This is not just a make it or break it year for him and Daniel Jones with the Giants, but him and Daniel Jones, not just with the Giants, but the entire NFL. I have no doubt that he can and is very talented. That's not a debate. But can he get back to his former self? And the sad fact is, though, the way he plays, even his former self, is inconsistent. The Giants didn't need to draft him that high in the first place. It didn't help him. In fact, it did hurt them because when they did need him, he wasn't necessarily available. When they did need him, he was also hurt. Up and down, up and down. It was a promising rookie year in 2018, was a huge downfall, just like Alderaan, or Princess Leia. Sorry, that's just pretty much what it is. We had a huge show for the John Allcorn Show. But without further ado, let's go into tonight's final thoughts. A huge show tonight, a 2+ hour show, nearly getting the record for the longest John Allcorn show in history. That wasn't the goal. We just had a lot to go over tonight on the John Allcorn Show, exclusively on the Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Network. Season 3, Episode 3. We just had Brandon Grimes this past week on the show, so feel free to actually check that out. That is on Anchor, a lot of social media platforms. Podcast highlights is on the John Allcorn Show and the Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Network YouTube page. A lot of great stuff talking about making a big year for Lamar Jackson. We talked about 8 teams and their schedules for the next season, how that could impact Mariota and the Falcons. There's so much. Love talking to football with y'all. Thank you all so much for the support on the network and on Twitch. We are at 5 followers already on Twitch for the ISN network, so more things to come. The John Allcorn Show. We will see y'all next time. Have a good one.
Unbelievable! What a play!
Nobody works harder. This guy is a future superstar in the media business.
Keep up the good work, man. I like your style.
You have a gift. And with great power, there must also